Lorenzo and I both saw Michael Clayton, and for the first time in a long time, agree very much about how much we liked the movie. It's one brilliantly written, wonderful screenplay, and directed by Tony Gilroy, and George Clooney is just heaven. But the movie itself reminded me of one of yours, Lorenzo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 3 Days of the Condor. You wrote the script of 3 Days of the Condor, and it has the same kind of, there are bad people who need to be overcome.
Every dramatic story has bad people to be overcome. But George Clooney is particularly good in this. Again, it's very boring to have to say how great everybody is. It's much more fun tearing people apart and dishing them and leaving them in ruins. But it's impossible to do that in this movie. One of the reasons Clooney is so good is that he's sort of weary in this. He's really acting very good in this. Maybe in real life he has gotten weary. But he doesn't go looking for trouble in this. Trouble comes looking for him.
George Clooney is the modern-day, old-fashioned movie star. And not to mention 3 Days of the Condor, the way Robert Redford was. Attractive. There is a background there that you discover only as you go along. I mean, he's divorced and has a very good relationship with his ex-wife and with his son. He comes from an Irish-American working-class
Let me interrupt
family.
to say what the movie is for people who haven't seen it.
Okay.
And there are a lot of people who haven't seen it, because let me again digress.
Okay.
There's some reason to believe that Warner's has done a very poor job of distributing this movie. The title is not one that's going to get people rushing from the malls in to see it.
It's got George Clooney in it.
It's got George Clooney in it. If you call the movie George Clooney, but still, they opened it at a few theaters, like an art movie. But then instead of gradually expanding it, platforming it, I believe is the phrase that they use in the business these days. Instead of gradually expanding it, they played it in a few theaters for 1 week and then opened it absolutely as wide as some piece of junk. And this was not the way...
Not a piece of junk, but just as a big mass market film.
Some piece of junk. And as I said, it has not done very well at the box office compared to how good a movie it is. The movie itself, it's about a law firm. It's
Aaron Brockovich time.
It's Aaron Brockovich time. There's a law firm that is defending a big corporation that is killing people with one of its products, and they're defending them, and Tom Wilkinson, who's just as good as George Clooney, plays one of the lead litigators. He's a lead litigator in the trial, and he's losing his mind at the beginning of it.
Because he knows that it's true that this company is
poisoning
making
people.
It's a weed killer that is killing people all over the farm area. And the best villain in the world is Tilda Swinton, is that her name?
Exactly, yes. Tilda Swinton, who is the general counsel of the chief lawyer for the defendant. But the thing takes place entirely against a legal background. George Clooney calls himself the janitor of the firm. He's not a litigator. In other words, he doesn't argue cases in court, but when terrible things happen, like when some rich client gets drunk and runs over a pregnant woman coming home from a party, why they send George Clooney around to tidy up the situation.
Yes.
And so he's sort of just beaten down at the beginning. Even though he's very successful, he's not proud of himself or anything at the beginning.
And also he's a gambler, and he owes the mob some $75,000, which he doesn't have.
This is, in legal movies, this is a pattern, I have to say. The Verdict was the same way. You start with Paul Newman, who's a drunk and beaten down and for various reasons has to recover his self-respect.
It's a writer's screenplay. The characters are good. There's no exposition. Things just happen and you find out. His brother's a cop by seeing him open a little a little safe in a closet and take out a gun and put it in his back pocket, and you realize he's a New York City cop.
Or else a gangster, but nobody wouldn't be.
No, he's not a gangster.
If I see somebody put a gun in their waistband, I'm apt to think first, I think cop second. I believe you can tell if a movie is going to be any good from the first 3 or 4 minutes. This has a brilliant opening. In other words, it has a degree of imagination.
Yes.
There's a monologue, a voice-over monologue by Tom Wilkinson, who's going mad. The monologue is over shots of the legal office. Nobody in them.
No, where they're cleaning at the end.
They're cleaning it, just the combination of those images and this voice of this lawyer who's losing his mind.
Yes. I think the wonderful moment in it is you think towards the end that he indeed has capitulated because he needs the money to
pay the mob.
Because they do not treat you nicely. And yet it has the most fabulous ending in the world, where the audience I saw it with all burst into applause.
It's really enraging. The critics, without exception that I've read, refer to they say a good but contrived ending.
Well,
I mean, drama is contrived. That's the purpose of drama. It's so rare to see these days a movie that well written, well directed, and the acting was all
first rate.
First rate. See it.